Hey guys, the time is here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my 10 favorite films of 2019. These are 10 films that I personally view as the best throughout the 2019 film year. These are 10 films that I personally feel represent the best that the film art form had throughout 2019. These are just stories, concepts, films that big directors that I love have made throughout the year that I absolutely loved. As we work our way up the list, I love those films even more and more. So obviously, we're going to work our way up to the number one favorite film of the year for me. Um, so I guess I have a lot to talk about in this video, a lot of things about a lot of films that I really enjoyed throughout the year. So let's just get cracking on it. Let's start at number 10. At number 10, we have Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I loved this movie. Guillermo del Toro was the co-writer of the movie, and he produced the film. He didn't direct the film. Andre Overdahl of Troll Hunter, I believe, was the director of this movie. But either way, both of them collaborated in a beautiful fashion in this movie. I love those books ever since as I was a kid. Alvin Schwartz, I believe, was the writer of the books back in the day. They really adapted those books into one film beautifully. The whole idea of one big story featuring a book that has really horrible things that happen to these kids and stuff like that, and they happen to be the stories from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that these scenarios play out as. Just the way that they handle it, just the way the practical effects look in the movie. I love the characters in this film. They have arcs in the movie too. Just the way it was filmed, the way it was directed, the way it was written. I just love this movie. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend seeing it. It makes it in at number 10 on my list. At number 9, not only do we have another great film on this list, but it's actually a very personal film to me because um, this is around the time of the year where I started seeing somebody that I was starting to get serious with, and this is actually the first film that her and I saw together. It's basically the first film I ever saw with my girlfriend, pretty much, and that's Isn't It Romantic, which makes it at number 9 on this list. Both myself and my girlfriend love this movie. What I really liked about it is just how colorful it was. I liked when we get into the whole girl being stuck in a romance comedy movie kind of thing. It's a very colorful movie. I like how the people kind of fall in love with each other very easily in this world that she gets sucked into. I like how she has to kind of figure out kind of the romantic comedy tropes to get out of this world and things like that. She learns things about herself. We have really good performances from people that I normally don't see good performances from. Not to say that they're bad actors or actresses or anything, but I think just the fact that this script was written with so much care and love, and the way it was performed was very well performed. Priyanka Chopra, who's obviously known for a lot of films over in India with Bollywood and things like that, she got to lend her dancing and singing talents to this movie in a beautiful fashion. Adam Devine, Liam Hemsworth, Rebel Wilson, all of those people had great performances in this movie. It's just a very funny film. It's a film you can enjoy too. It's not just this really well dramatic movie. It really is very funny at times. It really does play off of the romance comedy tropes in very beautiful fashion. I absolutely love Isn't It Romantic? It's number 9 on my list. At number 8 on my list, we have Spider Man Far From Home. I thought after Avengers Endgame was done with earlier in the year, I thought kind of Marvel was looking into kind of going into phase 4 and things like that. But Spider Man Far From Home kind of showed the aftermath of Avengers Endgame, kind of where characters were going, where Spider Man himself was going. I also like how they continued kind of what Spider Man Homecoming established, and that's really a story about a high schooler being a superhero and kind of how there's really kind of tough things you have to get over with. You probably can't do all the clubs, and you can't be with all your friends, and you can't have the girl of your dreams because of this big responsibility of the superhero thing that you've kind of taken on. And I thought Spider Man Far From Home tackled that beautifully, kind of like what Spider Man Homecoming did in 2017. A lot of the things that worked in Homecoming I thought worked well in Far From Home also. Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal played a really good Mysterio in the movie. There's just tons of things about it where every time I bring it up with somebody, I seem to love it more and more. The more I let it kind of think about it, the more I let it sit on my head. It's a Spider-Man film that I think is just really well made. Maybe not the best Spider-Man film ever made, but I think it's a very well-made Spider-Man movie, and it's at number 8 on my list. At number seven, I personally thought after Toy Story 3 was made, I thought Pixar was kind of done with that story. There was kind of nowhere else for Toy Story to go. If they made any more, obviously maybe they could have gone downhill a little bit, but that was not the case at all. At number seven on my list, we have Toy Story 4. Pixar knocked it out of the park truly with this movie. Like I said, I really thought the Toy Story story was done at number three, but Pixar found a way to continue the story in beautiful fashion. They made it really about the toys this time. I also like how it's the kind of the first Toy Story film, and it's surprising to say this because it's a film about toys. It's a franchise about toys, but Toy Story 4 really is a film that made sure it was about toys, and I think that's what I liked about it. Is it really was toys speaking out as to kind of where they want to be when they find an owner, what they hope to be to the kid that finds them if they're like a lost toy. I like how it played around with ideas like, with Forky, where if a kid views something as a toy, now in this world in Toy Story, that toy can interact with other toys. So I thought it was really cool to see Forky kind of becoming a toy after being this object that really wasn't meant to be a toy. So there's all these things, and it's a very emotional third act in this movie that really grabs you by the heartstrings. At number seven, like I said, we had Toy Story 4 on this list, and very deservingly so. It's a very well-made Pixar movie. At number six, we have Joker. I really like this movie, and I knew I was going to love this movie the second I saw trailers for this movie. Todd Phillips from the Hangover fame directed this film, and he directed a very different kind of film. This is a very different kind of Todd Phillips film that we're used to seeing him direct. I love how Joaquin Phoenix played the Joker in this movie. I like how it works as a crime drama. I like how it makes Gotham City kind of this very dirty, gritty, kind of dangerous place to live in, and I think that's kind of how Gotham City was always meant to look like in any Batman interpretation. I like how it's not just a Batman movie necessarily, it's a film that takes place in the world that Batman lives in. I think that's the perfect way to approach a Joker movie. I like how there's kind of moments that are kind of meant to be funny in a very unusual way. There's also scenes that you think are going to be funny, but they go in a very dark direction very quickly. There's a lot of things I absolutely loved about Joker, and it's at number six on my list. At number five on my list, we have Ford versus Ferrari. This is the latest James Mangold film. I love this movie. James Mangold is a very talented director as it is. I loved a lot of his films like Copland and Logan. Ford versus Ferrari really grabbed me though because it really is about two men trying to figure out how to make a car that could win the Le Mans race back in the 60s, and they had to compete with Ferrari vehicles. And it really was kind of about two men that are kind of live and breathe cars. And I like how it's not just a film where if you love cars, you're going to love it more, but it's also a film where if you don't know a lot about cars, it's a film that you can learn about cars from too. It's a kind of an interesting true story about these two guys that really had to make kind of this impossible car that could win at this Ferrari race and things like that. So it's a very beautifully made film, and it's told over the course of 2.5 hours. And I learned about characters. I learned about things that I really kind of didn't know went into a Le Mans race and things like that. So Ford versus Ferrari is at number five on my list. At number four on my list, I have A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I really liked that earlier Mr. Rogers film, that Won't You Be My Neighbor, that documentary that came out about 1 or 2 years ago. But I really, really liked A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I thought it was an even better film than Won't You Be My Neighbor. I thought it really showed the legacy of Fred Rogers. I really like how it showed kind of the impact that Fred Rogers had on people. I also like the story of the journalist. I know a lot of people didn't like how it was focusing on this journalist that's kind of has a lot of unlikable qualities, but I really like how the film focused on a broken character and how Fred Rogers really wanted to make his life better and put his life in a better direction, how they stayed friends over the years. And the film's also made like a Fred Rogers episode on television back when they were made. They even tracked down cameras from back when episodes of a show or film to make it look like it was filmed from that time and things like that. So there's a lot of things to love about Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Morel Heller directed a beautiful movie. I also liked her earlier film, Can You Ever Forgive Me? I thought that was also very good as well. But she really brought it home for me with A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I really hope Tom Hanks wins an Oscar of some kind for this movie, for playing Fred Rogers in the movie. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is number four on my list. At number 3 on my list, we have a film that unfortunately will never see the light of day on Blu-ray or DVD because Amazon likes money and they want you to subscribe to their Amazon Prime service, unfortunately. But it is released from Amazon Studios, and I absolutely love this film, and I kind of hope it will be released on home video someday as DVD or Blu-ray of some kind. But that's the film Late Night. I love this film. It has so much to say about late night talk shows. I like the arc that Emma Thompson characters go through of kind of this late night talk show host that is used to old ways of being that kind of has this routine of always using this old kind of humor in her show. She has to adapt to new ways of humor, finding a new audience for her show. Mindy Kaling has a great role in this movie. She also wrote the script for the movie. Very beautiful script was written for the film. There's just so much to love about Late Night. It has so much to say about late night talk show hosts and kind of the process that goes into making them and things like that. So if you have not seen Late Night, it's an absolutely beautiful, wonderful comedy that I highly recommend seeing. At number 2 on my list, we have Avengers Endgame. I thought the MCU wrapped up the Infinity Saga beautifully in this movie. There's a lot of things they had to work off of in Avengers Infinity War, which they work off beautifully. There's a lot of questions and a lot of answers that happen throughout the movie that are done beautifully. The action scenes are wonderful. It really is an epic movie. It really is an epic superhero film that brings all these Marvel heroes together in a really brilliant way. There's just so much things to love about Avengers Endgame, and almost every compliment you could give a movie, I could probably give this movie. Avengers Endgame is number 2 on my list. And at number 1 on my list, it is Richard Jewell. I loved this movie. I think it's probably my favorite Clint Eastwood film since Gran Torino, and I really, really liked Gran Torino when that came out. Richard Jewell has so much to say about journalism. It has so much to say about real life heroes. It really does show you kind of how toxic journalism can get if a story is taken too far. Paul Walter Hauser, who played Richard Jewell in the movie, did a beautiful job. I hope he wins an Oscar. I hope Sam Rockwell wins an Oscar. He plays this really likable lawyer that helps Richard Jewell get through all this in the movie. Kathy Bates gives a heartbreaking performance as the mother of Richard Jewell in this movie. I hope she also wins an Oscar because she really did a magnificent job at this role in this movie. She really did show just how much this hurt the mom of Richard Jewell back when all this happened. There's just so much to love about Richard Jewell. It's such a likable, lovable movie, and I really wish the guy didn't have to suffer this much to kind of get all of this weight off of his shoulders of this really bad story that made it to the press that wasn't true. He really was the hero of this bombing situation back when it happened in the 1996 Olympics. And I absolutely love Richard Jewell. It's my favorite film of 2019, and it absolutely is my number 1 favorite film of the year. So that's my top 10, you guys. Let me know down below kind of what your favorite films of 2019 were. Let me know what you thought about Richard Jewell if you got to see that yet. I personally thought it was the best film of 2019. Let's hope 2020 gives us a lot of great films, and be sure to stick around for my top 5 worst films of 2019.